We want to stick with one other story. We want to stick with boxing for one more story. It's really terrible news from the boxing community yesterday, really. Maxim Dadashev passed away. Like, for anybody who missed this, because I know you were talking about this in Off the Brawl, he was in hospital for the past couple of days after injury sustained on a fight on Friday night, only passing away yesterday. So the context of this has been spoken about for some days, but it's only really been hammered home after the tragedy of yesterday.
We recorded yesterday and it'll go out tonight on Off the Brawl, and at that point it hadn't been announced that he had passed away. There's been a few of these in recent times, and fortunately the fighters have pulled through. I'm not sure the quality of life varies after an injury like this, but there was always a risk, but there was no hints that this guy wouldn't pull through, you know, that it was a medically induced coma, that they'd removed part of his skull to relieve the pressure, that he was, there was some bleeding on the brain, and that what had happened previously, that these guys pulled through, you know. Adonis Stevenson was the most recent one for it to happen to. That was in December of last year. And it's a tragic loss, and it's a reminder for everyone that, you know, the dangers of boxing. But you know, it puts things into context. Like recently, Jason Quigley, this week, the same weekend, the same night, Jason Quigley lost the fight. He was pulled out after the 9th round by his corner, in the same way that Dadashev had been pulled out. Unfortunately, like, I'm sure Jason now is he's probably feeling hurt by the loss, but I think that would put things into context, that he's still got his health and that he's still here. Yeah. Because there's always that risk when you step into the ring.
And what makes this very interesting is that Dadashev was obviously up against Gabriel Matthias. That was the fight that he had on Friday night. We might actually just play some of the audio to kind of put this into context. And this is kind of the extra layer of the story, because he had obviously never lost a professional boxing match when he entered the ring on Friday at the MGM. It was on at the MGM National Harbour Resort in Oxon Hill. So we can have a listen to this clip from Friday night in Maryland. It's Dadashev's trainer, Buddy McGirt, letting him know that he's about to stop the fight.
I'm going to stop the fight. Max, I'm going to stop it. Max, you're getting hit too much. You're getting hit too much, Max. Please, Max, please, let me do this, okay? Okay? Look at me. Please. Please, you're getting hit too much, Max. If I don't, they're going to do it. You understand me? If I don't, the referee's going to do it. Please. Please, Max. Come on, Max, please. Come on, you got to be honest with me, man. Doc, actually stop it, Doc. That's it. That's it.
It's not an easy listen, that.
It's not, and what you can see is that Dadashev's obviously Russian, and Buddy McGirt's talking to him, but he's also talking to the interpreter and trying to communicate what's going on. And what you can see is the lack of reaction from Dadashev. You know, that it's just there's nothing behind the eyes, that he's kind of he's quite vacant in his response, and that's always, you know, a worrying sign. And what, like, it brings up several things, like in boxing, like the same weekend on Saturday night there was a fight in England with David Price and David Allen, and a fight which actually David Allen was the favourite going into, and the story with the fight was that, well, what people thought would happen was that David Price might win the early rounds, but then later on David Allen will come on and pressure him, and that would be where he'd do his best work later on in the fight. And so early in the fight, David Allen was taking a lot of punches with the hope of coming on later, but it didn't seem like it was going to turn. And then after 10 completed rounds, David Allen said in the corner, "Look, I've had enough." And Darren Barker, along with David Allen, Darren Barker is his coach, said, "Well, I'm pulling you out." And he said, "Yeah, I've had enough." And David Allen got quite a lot of criticism for pulling himself out of a fight. And in boxing, there's this unwritten word, there's this mantra that we go out on our shield, that you don't quit, that you'll have to, you'll have to carry me out of the ring. And I think that has to be changed now. It has to be, this belief has to be changed. And I think coaches have to be a lot more vigilant as well. Buddy McGurk, unfortunately, like, he thought he was trying to save his fighter. He probably never thought his life would probably save him for another day. You know, that don't take this punishment now because it will affect your career long term. Come back another day when you're feeling better and you might win a fight. But like, so Dave Allen takes a lot of criticism from pulling himself out. He had said some comments himself about Anthony Joshua's fight, and said that Anthony Joshua quit and that he would never quit. And no, he does quit, and he takes a lot of stick. There's a guy who doesn't want to quit, Dadashev, and look what happens to him. He goes on longer than he should have, fought longer, and then loses his life. And when you look at it compared to MMA, the kind of shaming that's around boxing when someone quits, compared to MMA, look at Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz. He tapped out. There's no shame. There was no one calling him a quitter. There's no one calling him a coward, which happens in boxing all the time. Two guys who reached, like Guillermo Rigondeaux, one of the greatest amateur fighters and world champion as a professional, quit, complaining with a shoulder injury, but more or less quit in a fight against Lomachenko, and has never been given the same opportunities, never been looked at in the same way by fight fans and boxing industry people. They just say that he quit. Same with Nicholas Walters, who in a fight with Lomachenko said, "I've had enough, I can't win," and quit. Those guys are still here today. No, Dadashev's not here, you know, and that's the reality. Like, that's the stark reality of this whole situation, and this whole mantra that if a fighter quits, that like the shaming of a fighter who quits, and they feel that they can't quit, even though they know it's a perilous situation, that they can't win, that it's going on. They're only going to take more punishment. Like, I just think that there has to be some change in that. First of all, a change that if you lose, it's not the end, and if you quit, it's not the end, you know. And I don't know. A fighter should never have to quit himself anyway. A coach should always be there to see that he's had enough, and the coach shouldn't ask. Even with Buddy McGurk kind of pleading there, in a way, it's not a good. A coach should always just say, "Look, that's it. You're done. I'm done. I'm calling the fight. You've lost the fight. You're taking too much punishment. There's no way you're going to win." No, once your fighter is capable of what he can sustain, and pull him out. But it's just, you know, it's just a tragic loss. And he was a young man, 28 years old, and not like 13 fights, undefeated, a prospect, ranked number 3 in the world by the IBF. So he's not like he was a veteran or a journeyman. This is a good young fighter with a huge future. And you know, I tweeted a piece last night from ESPN, and how Dadashev had spoke about bringing his family to America and wanting to be, you know, become an American citizen.
He was fighting for a green card.
Fighting for his family and his future. And this is just one of the saddest losses that, you know, but this happens in boxing, and you know, the thing like that, and you have to look at not that you can point the blame at anybody for this, certainly you can't, but the kind of protocols around boxing injuries, and the you know, in this piece, because I haven't watched the fight, because I don't want to watch the fight. You know, I don't want to see the fight. I had seen the piece with Buddy McGurk in the corner, and it refers to him still being on the stool 3 minutes after the decision, after he'd been pulled out, was made, and then talks about him getting down, and had to sitting on the steps, not being able to make it to the changing room from the ring by himself, and then he's taken on a stretcher, and he loses consciousness in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. I don't know what can be done, but when a fighter is stopped in a ring, they should always err on the medical side, should always err on the side of caution, and be extreme in their measures and procedures and what they do, just to guarantee the safety, and that all that can be done is done. Like, it's just I don't even want to be talking about the situation, you know, and there's no good outcome in this, you know. But I think the boxing community and the boxing fans, they need to change their the way they look at boxing and this attitude of never quit, go out on your shield.
How do you change that culture?
This is it here. This is what we're looking at now. To remind people of this, that's a young man has lost his life in the ring by not wanting to show for pride, not show that he was beat and to keep fighting when there was no hope of winning. And even but this fight, it's like, and it's a fight that like. This happened in a similar situation. Chris Eubank Jr. fought a guy called Nick Blackwell. Nick Blackwell was a good young prospect, good young fighter. And in that fight, as long as what seems in this fight with Dadashev, that at no point in the fight was there ever a chance for it to be stopped. He was like Nick Blackwell in the fight with Chris Eubank was always competing, even though he was never getting the best of the rounds. He was still punching back and still within a fighting chance, maybe not winning the fight going down towards the end, but knocking them out or pulling something out of the bag. That's always the hope. And the same thing, he ends up in a coma, and his life has been affected by it. Fortunately he's still here and still alive. He didn't pay the ultimate price, but his life's been hugely affected by that loss. I don't know, it just something has to, because across all sports, but in boxing as well, conditioning now, the fighters are getting faster, stronger, fitter, and can sustain power punching for longer. And the human brain hasn't changed in all the time, but in 200,000 years, so something has to be looked at, I think.
Did that ever run through your mind when you were boxing that I'm in a bit of trouble here? For my own good, for my family's well-being, I need to step out of this?
No, but towards the end of my career, my last two fights, so I suppose, I had those thoughts. And I had those thoughts that if anything bad was happening, but I didn't. And when the fights were, when I was in there, when I was dropped by Billy Joe Saunders, I fought. When I should have held. I kept fighting and got dropped again and fought on. And the two major fights I had towards the end, not my last fight, but with Quillen and with Saunders, after being, Quillen dropped me, I think it was, I don't even remember the round, I think it was the first round. And I don't recall or remember any of the fight until the last round, until the round 11. I remember getting off the stool in round 11 and asking Adam, how's the fight going? Am I in the fight? Should I go for a knockout? And he said, no, just keep boxing, you're in the fight. And I ended up getting a draw. And with Saunders, he dropped me in the third round, and I boxed. And again, I don't recall the fight. I recall the decision, and them just read. I didn't know had I won or lost, but I had boxed the remaining 9 rounds, and them calling that I'd lost a majority decision, majority draw decision to Billy Joe Saunders. These things happen, and it's when I see that Dadashev in the corner, he's not responsive, that his coach is talking to him, but he's not taking in what's being said. That's how I was in those fights with Quillen, certainly, because Adam had said to me, I was talking to you and I wasn't getting nothing back, but I just kept nodding and saying, I'm okay. It's so mad. It's mad. But I touch wood, I met it out, and I didn't get hurt in my career.
Because I was watching Max Kellerman on ESPN yesterday talking about being at the fight and saying that there was no sort of physical sign, especially in the way he was fighting, that things would get this grave. To put it bluntly to you, Andy, you showed the exact same symptom on that night that this boxer who's now dead showed.
Quillen, if Adam had pulled me out, and there were times when, even when I was in the corner, the referee was coming over and saying, are you okay, Andy, okay? And I was just saying, yes, I'm okay. And the commission was looking in, and in New York, they're quite stringent, they're very stringent, they're quite strict. Any sign of trouble and they'll stop the fight. But I wanted to fight, and you keep fighting, that's what we do. But as seen, it's not always the best thing.
No, for sure. It is a piece worth your time, as Andy tweeted out what Maxim Dadashev was fighting for. It's by Mark Riegel on the ESPN website. It was written before he died, so it's kind of got a very haunting tone about him. 28 years old, Maxim Dadashev, passed away yesterday. It is 29 minutes past 8 this morning on OTB AM, the Sports Breakfast Show from Off the Ball.